Hi, welcome everyone. So today's recipe is going to be a rice crepe or a type of dosa. Now dosa is something which a lot of people think is only what you would get at a restaurant, like the long curled up version, but then there are more than 1,000 types of dosas in different parts of India, especially in the southern part of India. But we're going to be making a type of dosa again, which is from the coastal region, because that's where you grow more rice, you grow more of coconut. So you know the people living there would prefer eating something of that kind, and also because it's warm and humid, it's possible to ferment the dosa or the batter that you have in a dosa. But anyways, just to welcome you all, my name is Paulami, and we are going to be making the dosas from the coastal part of west of India, of Maharashtra. It's called Ghavan. And again, there are similar cousins of this type of dosa in other parts of India as well, just as many other dish has. But we're going to be making Ghavan today, which comes from the Konkan belt of Maharashtra, which is, if you've been to Goa, which a lot of people have been to. So if you go to Goa, just before you enter Goa, when you're finishing Maharashtra, or when you're traveling from Bombay, if you take the road from Bombay to Goa, you will definitely pass through the whole belt of sea coast, that is the Konkan region, and that's where this particular dish comes from. So I don't know how many people are watching right now, but if you are, as always, just whenever you join in, just say hi, hello, where you're from, so that I know who's watching. And if you're watching this later on as a live recording, drop in a comment. And if you are new to my channel, please do check out the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, because only then can you get notifications of such kind of live videos or recipes. I know there are multiple recipe channels on YouTube, and maybe I'm not giving something which is very new, but I promise that I try to make the recipe look pretty easy and try to simplify it as much as possible for anyone to follow. So that's the USP for you to subscribe if you have not yet subscribed. So for this dosa, what you would need is rice flour, or rijstmeel in Netherlands, in Dutch language. So this is the rice meal that you have, and I'm going to be taking 1 cup of this rice meal. Before I get into taking the measurement, I just wanted to show you that this is the rice meal, or the rice flour. You can also make it yourself, but that is a longer process and it's more complicated. It needs to be sun dried, or rather dried properly, and in a weather like Netherlands, it's not really possible to have that, and it smells really bad when it is being washed and soaked and then dried. Not a really pleasant smell. So don't bother making it yourself. Go get yourself the rice flour from the supermarket. It makes your job much easier. To add some more flavors to it, again, this is not mandatory, you don't really have to do it, but I'm going to be adding one, like this is a tiny chili, so I'll take 2 chilies. Again, you can completely skip off the chili part totally. It just gives it a nice greenish texture or color in between the whole white crepe, so it's just a pop of new color. And some coriander leaves. If you're somebody who doesn't like coriander leaves, then the flat parsley is an option, or just skip it completely. Absolutely possible. And to go with it, you can pair it with coconut milk, sweetened coconut milk, or some kind of dried chutney. But we're going to make a coconut chutney. So I have got with me this grated coconut. Now, this is not grated by me. You get this in packets like these. Now, this is kind of a packet. Again, I found this at the Indian store, but I am sure you get it at Asian supermarkets as well. The tokos, you will find these kind of packets, not this brand specifically, but any brand per se, you will have it in the frozen section. Just defrost it and use it. And this is much different from the desiccated coconut or the khedrogd kherasped coconut. This is just kherasped, just grated, and not khedrogd. This is still pretty fresh coconut. And if you have this, which is the khedrogd coconut, the desiccated coconut, then what you could do is just soak it in water for a couple of minutes before you want to make the chutney, so that it gains some kind of life back into it. In case you can't find this, it's not that you can't make the chutney altogether, you can, but then just soak it in water for some time. So we're going to use this, and to give it a binding agent, just like any pesto or chutney needs some kind of a nut to make it stay together. Just like if you're making a pesto, you would add some kind of the pine nuts to it. Same policy. You're going to be adding this. This is erwten or split yellow peas, also called as Chana Dal. We will dry roast this. It's also a kind of snack in India. When you dry roast something like this, you can actually eat it. It gets super crunchy, coated up with some spices. You can also eat it as is, but we're going to use this. It's nothing but split chickpeas per se. So we're going to use this and a little bit of coriander leaves. In case you don't have the erwten with you at home, or these split peas at home with you, you can always use peanuts. And that's something which is always there. If no peanuts, pinda is not at home, you can also use cashew nuts, almonds, any nuts is fine. So if you don't find it, if you're allergic to nut, then this kind of a thing will make sense for you. We'll also use one chilli into it. Again, that's optional, doesn't have to be there, just brings in a little good taste to the whole chutney. So we are going to start chopping the coriander, both for the chutney and for the dosa. And while we are doing that, I would love to have any questions if you have in what we are doing today. Say hi, whatever. So this is your chance to just talk if you want to just have any tiny interaction. So I'm going to be transferring everything to a bowl where we will make the whole dosa batter. Now this is a very quick breakfast item that's eaten in the Konkan region. It's not really, what do you say, you can make it for lunch or dinner as well. But because in India all meals are generally warm meals, this is one of the warm meals that people prefer there for the breakfast as well. So I am taking off the stalks, but I'm going to use it for the chutney. But for the dosa, I will just take off the stalk and have just the leaves used for the dosa. This is an instant version, so you don't have to really per se ferment the rice batter always. If you do, you can of course do it. It just makes it more authentic. But now times have changed, you get rice flour easily, so I would definitely recommend you to use that as an option vis-a-vis buying it. So we are going to be making close to 2 Ghavan. So I am going to take 1 cup, but maybe I will not be making the Ghavan out of the whole flour. Let's see. Now I'm going to take 1 chili with me, and I'm using so I'm using a grinder like this. Now this is something which is it's not that you can't use a food processor that you get at a Media Markt or a Dutch store. You can actually, my recommendation, a lot of people text me if I want to make chutneys and I don't have my mixer grinder, what do I do? You can use the one from, I think, Bosch. I do have that also at home, but this is something which I got from my kitchen back in India. I used to actually use this when I used to cook in my own kitchen in India. So I got this along with me, not when I was moving, but then one of the trips when I went back to meet my family, and I got it from the kitchen there because it was just lying there. Now, if you want to buy something like this, only the one from an Indian, thing, then you can go to an Indian store, and some of them, not all of them, but a bigger, older Indian store would have, it's called a mixer grinder. So this actually helps in making wet chutneys or dry chutneys quite effectively. Back in the days, and talking about, say, 30 years back or 20 years back, maybe, I would say 30, people didn't use something like this. They always had the stone grinders, not the pestle mortar for making the ground chutneys or the dry ones or the masalas, but the wet ones were always made in a big stone platform, and then you make a paste by rolling it around another stone. So it's a stone grinder was being used. You don't get those things anymore nowadays. You do get it, but then it's a lot more work. I remember my grandmom, my mom's mom, used to use it, and it took us quite some time to explain her to move to this, like a mixer grinder, because it just made life much easier, and also safer with that, because what if that falls down and things like that. So it's recommended to move to something like this, but again, old things are also good treasures to have. So now that I've got what I've done so far is I've got my coriander leaves chopped, I've got that 1 or 2 green chili chopped in this, and I'm going to take a little bit of salt. I see there's Suruchi, who's from Gurgaon. Hi Suruchi, thanks for joining from Gurgaon. So I am taking half a teaspoon. I'll take maybe another little bit more salt. In case the salt goes a little on the lower side, it's fine, because we will try to match that up with the chutney. So this is 1 cup, that is 240 ml. Or 185 grams of rice flour that we are taking. And now we are going to start taking water. So I will start first whisking this before I add water to it. You have to ensure that every time you actually mix it, rice flour goes to the bottom and then settles down there. So you have to keep doing this pretty often, even when you're making the dosa. So I will now take my half cup and then start taking. This is regular room temperature water that you need, nothing special. So I'll take that and start mixing it as in all we go. You don't have to you don't really need to keep adding too much water to start with. Just keep doing that as you progress. If you see that the mixture has started changing its texture, and it's important to ensure that there is no lumps, otherwise you will not be getting the proper dosa that you want. Now the batter has to be super runny. It has to be very, very liquidy. Absolutely not like a regular dosa batter, because a regular dosa batter is never this liquidy. It's always a little more dense. That's because it's fermented and it will rise on its own. But in this case, it's not going to be so. That's why you need to have a little more runny batter so that you can have the air pockets formed in it. So let's take a spoon and get this batter out. So while we are at it, if anybody who's watching has any questions, please let me know. I see there's another person who said hi. Hi, I see my mom-in-law is also watching it, so hello. This is actually something which I've learned after I got married, because I never knew this dish existed. Maybe I've never tried it at a restaurant because it is not pretty commonly served at a restaurant. So I learned it from her. So I hope you like the recipe, so that you know, you're happy with what the outcome is. So we will add some more water. So far I've added 1 cup of water. So I've done this half cup thing twice. So I'll add another half cup to it. So that's around 240 ml I've added once, and now I've added another 120 ml water. So now if you see from the texture perspective, this is how it looks like. This is pretty much how you want your batter to be. It's very runny, and that's why I wrote in my Instagram and Facebook post as well. So don't bother cleaning your kitchen before you start making this, because it gets a little messy while we're making this dosa. So why, we will see it in a little while. Anyways, this is the batter, how it will look like. I'm going to keep this to the side and start roasting these erwten, or the split peas, so that we can also get, while the dosa is happening, we also make the chutney to go along with it. So let's move these things. Let's clean the space. Now, just as I said, you can buy any version of rice flour. You also get, like in specialty shops, you can also find idiyappam flour or appam flour. You can also use those, or just the regular rice flour. So to make a dosa, you have to always, I mean, it's recommended to use an iron skillet, something which is non-sticky, because the dosa generally will stick to the batter. So what I am using here is a stone pan. So it has a stone finish to it. Now this is not that you have to mandatorily use only this pan, but I generally make my naan, my dosas, everything in a pan like this, because this is quite heavy. It's like an iron skillet, but then it's not a non-sticking pan. So that's my recommendation, and we'll have to clean this pan or rather grease it really well before we use it right now. But if you have a non-stick tefal or any kind of a non-sticking pan, totally use it. I'll show you what you have to do so to use that non-sticking pan as well. So absolutely go ahead and use your non-stick pan too. So I'm going to now roast this. Now this is 1 tablespoon of the peas or the chana dal. You can also take 1 tablespoon of peanuts or cashew nut or any nuts if you don't have this with you now. So let's get this cooking. While this is cooking, now to show you how that mixer grinder is, it looks like this. It's like a big apparatus like this, that's just like a food processor, and you will then use that. So you can always use the one by Bosch if you are in the Netherlands. So we're going to let this, so you're going to cook this till it turns out to be slightly brownish. So that's where it gets a little more crunchier. I wouldn't recommend you to use it raw, because then it's very lentily and doesn't really taste good. This is close to 3 tablespoons of grated coconut. So I will take this in it. And keeping some in reserve in case we need to beautify the whole thing. You need some salt. What you can also do, and we will see if we have time, I will also show you to the technique of adding some tempering on the chutney, because it just makes it look, or rather taste, so much better if you have tempered your chutney. Or it's called tadka lagana or chauk dena. So we are going to do that as well. So I haven't mentioned that in the ingredients list because it's a process which a lot of people don't follow if they're not cooking Indian regularly. So that's why I've not mentioned that it's not mandatory to do it. But I like my chutneys with a tadka in them always. So that's why I am going to be doing that. Anyways, this is kind of happening. We will turn on our pan over here. What we would do is take a cloth or a paper napkin like this and just grease this with a little bit of oil. In Chennai, if you've ever been to Madras, Chennai, what they also do is they have these long big brooms that they use to clean their, because they have these huge, at a restaurant they'll have huge dosa pans, and they will start, or a platform, and they start cleaning it with that broom every morning, or every time they want to put dosa they will clean it each time. So we are not making it industrially, we are not making it at a big scale, so we are not using a broom, but we are going to use what we have at home. I'm using sunflower oil. You can use coconut oil as well, but I prefer the flavor which is very neutral, so I prefer sunflower oil for this. Also you can use ghee if you like to, but again it's not something which is used always. So I'll take my cloth and then start just rubbing it around, and this way I have greased the pan. This is one tip that you can do. The other tip for you is, if you don't do this, you can also use take an onion, one onion, just cut it into half and then grease it. By doing that, you're actually bringing in some kind of greasiness, or rather stickiness, or the ability for it to go good with the dosa. So you can also do that as another option if you don't want to do this thing. You don't have to do this at every step, but you have to keep cleaning it with a paper or a cloth every time you have one batch of dosa out. So you have to do that, but you don't have to really clean it with oil every time, because when you're making the dosa you would anyways be adding oil, so the oil will stay in it, so you don't really have to do it with oil every time. And if you notice, the color of the chana dal is changing now, so we will have a little more browner dal in a little while. So while we are at it, I see there are a few people who are already watching us. If there's anyone with any questions, please ask right now. If you see the batter was pretty watery back then, and now it's gotten again dense because all the rice flour went to the bottom and got stuck there. So that's a very common thing with dosa, with the rice flour. So that's why you have to keep doing this every time you want to use the batter. And also for those of you who have dietary restrictions, you would know that it is a gluten-free batter, so it's completely gluten-free, and it's really good for people who have gluten allergies or things like that. So here we go. The pan is now at a pretty high heat. We'll start from the corner because the center is pretty hot right now. And just like that, there's no skill, there's absolutely nothing that you have to really follow. You just have to spread it from a little height. So if you saw, this is the pan and this is where my spoon was, so I was throwing it from a distance, from a height. This is what you will do, and not put it from, like a dosa, a regular dosa or the masala dosa, paper dosa, you would do it from here. In this case you would not. So I'm taking oil and maybe a tablespoon of oil on the edges of this, And I'll take a lid and put it, because this is rice flour, there's no lentil in it, nothing. You want the rice flour to cook really well, so that's why you're going to be cooking it under a lid for exactly 2 minutes and then take it off, and then again cook it on the heat. You don't have to again put the lid on top of it. So I have my dal, my chana dal. The colors of the dal has changed, so I'm just transferring it to my thing. Right, so I have my dal in here. Do you remember if I added salt to my chutney or no? I don't think I have. I don't remember. I'm going to add a little more salt to my chutney. I think I never added before, but if I did, then I'll have to just balance it out. So this has been almost there for 2 minutes, and if you see, how do you know that your dosa is almost ready for flipping is when you would start seeing the edges will start curling up, they'll start coming together. Now in this case, it's still yet to go, it's still there for a couple of more minutes that it has to be there on the pan on this side, and then you will start seeing the edges start curling up. Be patient, don't start playing around with this immediately as soon as you add to it, because you wouldn't have a good dosa in that case. So I'm just trying to release the edges this way. And again, just as how you would make a pancake, you would not be flipping it with the pan. If you're from the Netherlands, I know you would love to do that, flip the pan. So to flip the dosa or the crepe, don't do it in this case. It has oil in it, so would not be a wise decision to do that. So just let it cook, and just use a flat spoon like this to flip it out. So if you see, it started coming to you can now flip it because the edges have curled up. You don't have to flip it. It's okay if you don't flip it to the side. But when you do this, you're just ensuring that the rice flour cooks equally on all the sides, both the sides. So that's why it's better to do it that way. I see there's a question here. Okay, should the flame be too high or medium? In my case, I would always keep it at a constant temperature. So my flame was at a medium high. Some of the maximum that my induction can go is 9, and I have kept it constantly at a 6 since I turned it on. So I am not going to be playing around with it by lowering it, highing it up. And that's the biggest mistake that people do while making even a regular dosa. Keep it at the constant heat, which is what you should be doing. Don't play around with the heat. I hope that answers your question, Suruchi. And yeah, so this has been there on one side. If you like it crunchier, which I do, I will flip it again for another time and let this side, the good side, cook for some more time. But this is the stage that ideally the Ghavan needs to come out of the pan because it's cooked now. If you see that your flour is actually cooked on all the edges, what I'm doing now is I'm just going to cook it a little more because I like it crispier, but you don't have to do it at all. But I like my all kind of dosas to be super crispy, so I'm doing it. Now I'll make my chutney. So I'm going to add maybe 2 tablespoons of water to this, and so you can either serve it this way. So you've just folded it and you can serve it this way, Or how a Ghavan is also served is this way. So you can actually serve it this way as well. So you take a plate. What you can also do is, if you have banana leaves with you, plate it up with banana leaves and then serve the Ghavan on top of it. Now that's one of them. What we will do for the next step is again important. You have to clean this up. We've not added any oil as yet, but also if you've seen when we flipped it, we didn't add any extra oil. So you really don't need a lot of oil in this recipe. Just that 1 tablespoon of oil that you need while you are doing it. So I see there's a question on how to store them for later use. I wouldn't recommend you to store these, but what you can do is, if you want to give this, for a lot of people in Karnataka make this, it's called neer dosa in Karnataka, and what they do is they serve this with chicken curry or kari sukha or something like that. It's very, very common in Karnataka or Mangalore to eat it. So what they do is they just take it, it gets very soft. But they take it in their lunch boxes, say they make it at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning, and then they have lunch at 1. So that is possible, but you cannot really make this in the morning and then eat it the next day. So not really recommended in that case. But you can of course save it for, say you've made it now and you want to eat it after 2 hours. Totally doable. It's very, very possible to do that. So again, if you see, you have to play around with the batter. It is a task that you have to remember. Otherwise, what you would have is just water and no flour in your dosa. Okay, so let's make the second one, and while that's cooking, we make the chutney, and then I show you how the tadka is done, and then we take out the second dosa and we end this here. So please stay till the end because we want to see how the tadka is given to a chutney. So in this case, a lot of people, when I posted this, a lot of people asked if this is just like rava dosa, but then rava dosa will have a tempering that you have to add while you're making the batter itself. In this case, you've not added anything. Everything is fresh in the batter. So there's no tempering and there's no rava in it or semolina in this. So that's why it's different from a rava dosa and much easier than a rava dosa. And in case of a rava dosa, it has to be quite a lot more from a height than a Ghavan or a neer dosa. So again, let it cook for 2 minutes and then we would go make our chutney while that's happening. So if you are listening this on your telephone, please press the mute for maybe 2 minutes while this chutney happens. Otherwise, you might hear a little loud sound. Let's see. It looks beautiful. I would add teeny tiny little bit of water, very little water, yes, and another. Sorry. Our chutney is beautifully done. We take it off from here. Nice. So I'll show you how the chutney looks like. Before that, let's take this off. If you keep this for a longer time, what happens is that it starts getting too soggy because it's steam that's getting produced from this, and then it condenses down to water and it makes it a little more soggy, and you don't want that, and that's why just 2 minutes is enough for it to be that way. Don't keep it for much longer than that. If you see, this is how the chutney looks like right now. It's perfectly done. This is the stage where you can actually take it out. You don't have to really add the tadka to the chutney. If you're somebody who doesn't like coriander, you can always use red chili and tomato to make a red chutney out of that instead of a green chutney. And this stage, this is fine, but we'll add a little bit more tadka to it. So let's make the tadka available. We'll flip this. So I want you guys to see how this is, edges have started curling up. If you see from the top view, the edges are now curling up. This side I didn't even touch, but it started curling up. So I know that this side is done. So what I'll do is I'll slowly try to release them on all the edges this way. Yeah. And then flip it. There you go. So that's the second side that has happened. Let's make our tadka. Because I have an induction cooktop, I am using again a cast iron pan for my tadka. And we are going to use mustard seeds, black mustard seeds, zwarte mustard zaad, some curry bladder or curry leaves, and one dry red chili. Again, that's optional. You don't have to add the dried red chili. But that's what we're going to do and put it on top of that. That's about it. We've taken around, I would say, 1 tablespoon oil. You can, in this case, you can actually take ghee or coconut oil. It gives a very nice taste to it. You can also add some urad dal or white split peas. You can also add that along with this. You don't have to just do it with this. You can also add an extra urad dal tadka to this. But I'm going to add some black mustard seeds. And you can also add some hing for extra digestion. It brings in a nice taste. So I'm going to take this one red chili and add it, and some curry leaves. Unfortunately, we live in a country where finding fresh curry leaves is tough, so we have to depend on frozen curry leaves. If you have fresh curry leaves available, please go ahead and use that. Okay, this is done again. I'm going to now flip it. Yes. And our chutney is also done. Yes. So I've turned off the dosa pan. I've made 2 dosas, really big one. You can make 4 dosas with 1 cup of the rice flour of this size. So if you use a smaller pan, you will be able to make maybe a little less. I mean, a little more amount of dosas. And there you go. You have your 2 dosas. That's 2 Ghavan with the coconut chutney, green coconut chutney, and the tadka on top of it. I will update the measurements for the tadka in the description box, because I did not add it thinking that a lot of people might not have it with them. So I will add it in any case. This is how it looks like. I hope you also give this recipe a try. And if you do, let me know either in the comments below here whenever you see this video again, or you can always find me on Instagram with the same name, that is Spice Strip with Paulami, and send me a photo there, DM me the photo, so that I can then share it with others that you've tried this recipe as well. And do not leave this video without giving me a like and subscribe to my channel. So I hope you all will give this a try, and I hope to see you around for more such videos. Take care and have a brilliant weekend ahead. Thank you and take care. Bye.